There was a little girl who had a little curl right on the middle of her forehead. When she was good, she was very, very good. But when she was bad, she was horrid. So, here's the thing.
Digimon, digital monsters, Digimon are the drunkards. Digimon, digital monsters, Digimon are the drunkards.
About a year ago, I made a video on the 1999 anime Digimon Adventure, or more specifically, its English dub. It's a flawed video, but honestly, I'm still proud of it, even if at the time I was pretty inexperienced as far as both anime and Digimon are concerned. However, since then, I've gotten a bit more into the franchise. I played through a few of the games. Why did no one tell me that Cyber Sleuth was so good? Me and my friend Ryan started playing the card game. Jesus Christ, look at all of my fucking Digimon cards. Hell, I even bought these little figurines of the 8 original Digimon. And Greymon for some reason.
Digimon doesn't like to stand up on her own.
Worthless! I've also gotten a bit more into anime. And by that I mean, I watched Ghost Stories. You know, the show so bad that the English dub just made fun of it the whole time. Watch that. That's right, anime fans, I haven't watched a second of Evangelion or Akira, but I have seen Digimon and Ghost Stories. Don't worry, I'll watch them eventually. Damn it! Whoops. But speaking of that old video, I actually left it on a cliffhanger, where I said,
and trust me, I will eventually talk about this show because, oh boy, do I have a lot to say about Digimon Adventures 02.
You may ask what took so long, and, well, I didn't want to do both back to back. I wanted to space them out a bit, have some variety and all that. And when I felt like enough time had passed, I kinda realized I'd need to do a full rewatch of the series to actually make the video. I kept putting it off for reasons we'll get into shortly, but eventually I decided to just bite the bullet and watch all 50 episodes again. I'll be damned if the production time of a stupid YouTube video is gonna take over a year. That's right, I have a limited amount of time on this earth, and I decided to spend that time watching a kid's anime from the 2000s. 3 fucking times! Once for the initial viewing last year, once for the video in English, and again, though admittedly abridged, in Japanese for the sake of comparison. You may say that was overly thorough of me, but I said Rare made Star Fox 64 a few videos ago and I'm still losing sleep over it. So yeah, I've been spending a lot of time on this video. I don't normally do these sorts of callouts, but if you like the video and you want to thank me, leave a comment and like and all that shit. Or just send it to someone, I don't know, you do you, pal. Enough stalling. I think it's finally time to give you the video that's a year in the making. So, finally, let's talk about Digimon Adventure 02. One last thing before we begin though, it's pretty obvious that a lot of people watching this may not know the story behind the series up to this point. And while it certainly would be great to have you go back and watch the original video, it is 45 minutes long, and I don't want to force you to go back to watch that just to watch this video that very well may end up being even longer. So, before we begin, a quick summary. And I do mean quick, so pop on those listening ears, boys. We're gonna make this as swift as possible. Digimon started as a 1997 Tamagotchi spinoff, heavily based on being a cheap alternative to Pokemon. It was a massive success, and in order to cash in a newly formed franchise, a short film called Digimon Adventure was released in 1999 in Japan only. At the same time, Toei Animation showed interest in creating a Digimon TV series largely based off of the short film, which eventually turned into the anime of the same name. It follows 7, later 8, main characters: Tai, Matt, his younger brother TK, Izzy, Joe, Sora, Mimi, and later Tai's little sister Kari, as well as their Digimon, who are Agumon, Gabumon, Patamon, Tentomon, Gomamon, Biomon, Palmon, and Gatomon. Yes, all their names end in Mon, get used to it. The main characters are given these Digivices, which they can use to make their Digimon Digivolve. Forget Pokemon, as here they can go up and down their forms as they please. Think of it more like Super Saiyan forms in Dragon Ball Z. In their many adventures, they come across foes like Devimon, or this bastard called Marismon, who invaded the real world, but more importantly, killed Gatomon's friend Wizardmon and made me sad. Despite just being created to sell a product, the show tackled some pretty heavy and serious themes in a very good way, especially for a kids show, and for as bad as the English dub is, after the first few episodes it begins to be equally as good. There's some genuine passion behind making the show, and the creators were rewarded with the show being a great success. Not just as being a good show, but also making Digimon distinct from Pokemon. The lore around the digital world, like the crest that the Digidestin wield, or the world being created by a bunch of digital files smashed together, in my opinion, makes it very distinct from its much more successful rival. The original series ended on a bittersweet note, as the children said goodbye to their Digimon forever, as, after defeating the big bad Apoclamon in front of the whole world, they learned that both worlds were beginning to de-link, meaning that travel from one to another would no longer be possible. The Digidestined waved goodbye to their friends as they fly off back to their home. Having both literally conquered their foes, and metaphorically conquered the demons that were holding them back in life. Feel free to rewatch that a couple times in case you missed something, but with that all out of the way, let's finally begin. The show begins with TK from the original series narrating and giving us some info that catches up to speed. A few years have passed since the end of the original series, everyone's off doing their own thing, though the only one that really matters is Mimi is in America now doing her best to start a fashion career. TK has apparently moved as of late, and we're reintroduced to Kari as well as being introduced to the rest of the main characters in the series. Yoli, Cody, and... Davis.
Hey, buddy!
His name is not Buddy, it's TK.
Alright, TJ or JB or whatever it is, how do you know Kari?
Oh yeah, I should clarify something. Much like my last video, I will be primarily talking about the English dub. However, I will be talking about the Japanese version later, as well as some of the changes that happened when it hopped across the pond. Anyways, meanwhile in the digital world, these black rings are flying around, attaching to Digimon and mind-controlling them. These are completely different from the black gears at the start of the first series, which flew around, attached to Digimon and mind-controlled them, because they're rings instead of gears. Anyway, suddenly Tai is in the digital world.
Wait. Didn't you just say that the first show ended with both worlds being split forever or something like that?
Yep.
Do they ever explain why that's different now?
Kinda, and only really like halfway through the show.
Well, that's stupid.
Oh, we're just getting started, pal! Look, the show has a lot to talk about. Let's at least get through the first few episodes before we start the dissection. Along with the Dark Rings, there are these things called Control Spires, which act kind of like cell towers for the rings. They also make it so that regular Digivolving just doesn't work. All of this is being orchestrated by the mysterious Digimon Emperor, who is a literal child. So the three new characters, along with Kari and TK, get these fancy new Digivices, which allow them to transport themselves into and from the digital world. Now it's up to the next generation of the Digidestined to fight this little brat and save the Digiworld. So I feel like it'd be a good thing to talk about these characters first and foremost. See, in the original series, the characters were very simple when we first met them. Matt was stoic, Joe was an anxious nerd, Izzy was a curious nerd, and so on and so on. As the series went on, they got more depth, but because they were established as simple characters that we could understand, it made it easier for them to expand outwards. Why is Joe so self-conscious? Why is Matt stoic? All that kind of shit. This series doesn't really know what it wants these characters to be. I'll elaborate on that in a second, but let's talk about who these characters actually are first. In order of which ones annoy me least to most. First up, TK. He's basically how I'd imagine TK would grow up to be. He's heroic, he's wise from his adventures, and he immediately takes control of the situation when things start getting out of hand. Next up is Cody. Initially, he's very boring, as in that seems to be his personality. He has sunken-in eyes and talks in a slow, raspy voice.
I'm going home. I've got kendo practice this afternoon.
What? Practice later! The Digiworld's in danger!
Sorry, Davis, but my grandfather is the teacher, and he would be very disappointed if I missed a lesson. See ya.
And outside of that, he doesn't really have too strong of a personality. He has a few character arcs that just never pay off, but as the show goes on, he starts to become a stronger character, especially near the end. Up next is Yoli. She suffers from a similar problem as Cody, but worse so. Much like him, Yoli doesn't have much of a defined character early on. She tends to swap around a lot, actually. Sometimes she's reserved, sometimes she's overly energetic. Unlike Cody, though, I feel like she never really gets a strong personality that sticks. She basically just says very generic stuff.
Wow! He's so cute!
Oh, hi! My name is Yoli. Would you like to walk to school with us?
The Digivice says it's not far from here.
More Digi-eggs? We already have ours.
Who are they for?
In all fairness, she has moments, but she's mostly forgettable. Kari is a very strange creature in this show. She too lacks anything that's really hers, but the strange thing is that this can be hard to explain, but when she does say or do things, it generally feels more appropriate for other characters. Like, she has character arcs set up that other characters pay off. I know it may sound strange, but I'll explain when we get to it. It's a shame though, because I really liked Kari in the original series. And finally, there's Davis. Davis has a personality, but I fucking hate it. Davis is a snotty brat who wants everything his way. He's a jerk to everyone, no one really seems to like him, and worst of all, he's a simp!
You and I together all alone in the dangerous digital world? Finally, it'll be like my dream come true.
Excuse me?
Throughout a majority of the show, he just has no redeeming qualities and he's just really annoying, whining about basically everything.
I'm sorry, but we weren't properly introduced before we took our trip. My name is...
Hey, I'm freezing my goggles off and you're introducing yourself. Let's get going.
Leading to the show massively overcorrecting in the second half, which just makes me hate him more. But again, we'll get to that in due time. So now we know what these characters are, let's talk about the plot for a bit, as well as what the show wants these characters to be. The next few episodes follow a very simple pattern. First we see a Digimon Emperor being a dick by abusing or enslaving Digimon, then the new crew, accompanied by one of the original Digidestined, goes to stop him, and along the way finds these Digi-Eggs. These eggs are emblazoned with the symbols for the different crests, basically these things which represent an aspect of your personality. Davis gets courage and friendship, fucking hilarious there. Cody gets reliability and knowledge, and Yoli gets sincerity and love. Kari and TK respectively get the same crests that they had in the original series, light and hope. For the new guys, this is also how they get their Digimon. Davis gets Vmon, Yoli gets Hawkmon, and Cody gets Armadillomon. These eggs also grant them the ability to Armor Digivolve. Basically a less powerful version of Digilution that they have to use because the control spires won't let them regularly Digivolve. Also known as an excuse to keep the original Digidestined from just max Digivolving and easily taking this warp out. And yes, if you're wondering, that does mean that Vmon, Hawkmon, and Armadillomon have 2 different Digilutions. Now, in the original series, the personalities of the kids and their Digimon were chosen carefully. They are meant to either complement or contrast their personalities. The courageous Agumon pairs well with Tai, or the very kind and sincere Palmon contrasts well with Mimi, who's a fucking bitch, in the English dub. However, as we find out, these personalities that we think contrast actually work well together, as inside these kids do have these traits. They just aren't able to embrace them because of the trauma going on in their lives. Joe is self-conscious because his overbearing parents are forcing him to be someone he doesn't want to be. Izzy is naturally curious, but his fascination with computers has turned into an obsession because he's trying to ignore the fact that he accidentally learned he was adopted. This not only pushes our characters to have arcs, but also, when those arcs are complete, we completely buy the bond that these pairs have with each other. Now I'm explaining all of this to also explain to you why this series fails at characterization so horribly at the start of the show. Remember earlier when I said that Cody and Yoli don't have very strong personalities? Well, that's because, instead of actually giving them personalities, they just take a character from the original series and just say, "You're just like them." And I'm not exaggerating, they literally say that.
You know, Cody reminds me an awful lot of Joe. Yoli, what is it, Sora? I have this friend. Her name is Mimi and she's a lot like you.
I think he reminds me of Izzy.
Ty? I'm seeing things.
The problem is, not only is this just retreading old ground, but the new guys get 2 people they're supposed to be the new versions of. Davis is supposed to be the new Tai, and the new Matt. Yoli the new Sora, and the new Mimi. Cody the new Izzy, and the new Joe. The problem with that is, well, those are just different fucking characters. Yeah, Izzy and Joe are both nerds, but their core personalities are just different. Same with Tai and Matt, and Sora and Mimi. This results in these characters just randomly swapping personalities every episode. Is Yoli going to be the energetic but kind Sora, or the relaxed but bitchy Mimi this time? It changes per episode, along with the occasional random third personality trait that just shows up out of nowhere. Let's look at Cody, for example. One episode everyone is just kind of planning when suddenly Cody thinks,
I knew I shouldn't have expressed my opinions. Now they'll all just make fun of me.
Well, you're a little young to be worrying about those things, Cody.
this is the first time that's ever alluded to. There was never a point before this where someone dismissed Cody for being young. And then, to make things worse, they're not even consistent about it, because in the very next fucking episode, the team says to Cody, "Hey, you're pretty weak right now. We're gonna go off and save the day and leave you here." And Cody's response is, "Yeah, that sounds good, man. See ya."
I'll wait here. Don't be gone long.
This shit happens all throughout the series. Basically, all of the main characters suffer from this, but Yoli and Cody especially will just randomly have a moment in an episode where they just say they have a certain personality trait that we've never seen before, and then we never see it again. This shit happens up to the second to last episode of the fucking series. This isn't an episodic show, it's serialized. You can't pull that shit here. This has the counter result in giving Hawkmon and Armadillomon nothing to work with, and as such, they also have no distinct personality. Outside of the fact that they like their humans, I can't tell you a damn thing about either of them outside of their accents. Posh British, Southern Cowboy. At least Vmon is energetic, as he's meant to compliment Davis. But that's a problem because Davis sucks and he needs a character arc the most. So anyways, back to the plot. Eventually they come to realize that the Digimon Emperor is a kid that exists in the real world, and his name is Ken. You would think that since the kids can travel to and from the digital world freely, that this would make for an interesting dynamic as they confront him in the real and digital world in different ways. But nah. By the time they actually realize it's Ken, he decides to lock himself in the digital world forever. They actually never really take advantage of the fact that the kids can travel to and from the digital world as they please in this show, which is a bit of a disappointment. But back to the plot, instead of Ken using the Digimon he has, Wormmon, he instead decides to create his own, Chimeramon, who he believes to actually be worthy of him since Wormmon is a little wimp in Ken's eyes. Realizing that shit is going down, the new crew decides to spend a few days in the digital world to fully track down Ken's secret base, storm it, and deal with him. And we're gonna have to put the plot on pause here for a minute because there is a very important character trio that we need to discuss before going forward. That is the three-way rivalry between Ken, TK, and Davis. So in one of the only moments where the team interacts with Ken before they figure out that he's the Digimon Emperor, he and Davis have a soccer game where Davis actually manages to trip Ken up. This ego bruise causes him to get revenge on him in the digital world.
You heard me, pathetic loser. On your knees and beg. Please, Master, spare my worthless friends.
Please, Master, spare my worthless friends.
That's excellent.
And this sets up a rivalry between the two. At the same time, they try to imply that the one-sided rivalry between Davis and TK is in some way analogous to the rivalry that Matt and Ty had in the original.
When Matt and I were younger, we fought a lot too. But if we hadn't fought all those times, we probably never would have become such good friends.
Bullshit. Their rivalry came as a result of them having clashing personalities, whereas Davis is a jealous, vindictive asshole, and TK just ignores him and doesn't care. No one cares about Davis, all they do is make fun of him. But then, everyone just gets thrown into a blender, and randomly in one episode there's this climactic showdown between Ken and TK for some reason. Like, it makes sense what they're doing. Ken is tampering with the powers of darkness, and since TK almost lost Patamon to the powers of darkness, he's obviously personally pissed off by this. But it just kinda comes out of nowhere. There's no proper build-up, it just happens one episode. Then suddenly the rivalry between Davis and Ken doesn't have any sort of proper payoff, and instead, Ken gets a redemption arc and he and Davis become best friends, while TK and Davis kinda learn to just tolerate each other. But like, if TK and Davis were meant to be analogs to Matt and Ty, shouldn't they be the ones who become best friends? And shouldn't Davis be the one with the climactic showdown with the Digimon Emperor? Now, I am glad that they're doing something different, but the setups and payoffs just don't line up well. But anyway, speaking of Ken, they end up getting aboard his ship, and Davis finds the Golden Digi-Egg, which grants Vmon the ability to digivolve into Magnamon, which I'm sure we'll see again someday. He beats the shit out of Chimeramon, destroys him, and now that Ken is subdued for a minute, the Digidestin drop a bombshell on him. Apparently, all this time, Ken was under the belief that the Digimon weren't alive, that this was just some very elaborate video game.
Your Digimon were all at the soccer game in the real world. I remember now. You are real, not just computer data. I can't believe that I never figured that out. I'm a monster! I can't believe what I've done!
That combined with Wormmon, the only thing that actually cared about Ken, dying in the battle, causes Ken to have an emotional breakdown. We learn that Ken's brother Sam fucking died in a car accident, by the way, which literally just comes out of nowhere.
Wormmon's gone, just like my brother. I was helpless to save him, and now I can't save Wormmon either. Why do I keep losing people?
Damn, son. Also, apparently, Ken owns the Crest of Kindness. But after that, Ken just kinda wanders off, and everyone else just kinda declares victory. Okay, so up next I'm gonna talk about 3 episodes in particular. One of them actually already happened as far as the series is concerned, but it's isolated, so I decided to hold it off till now. First up, episode 13, also known as the Dark Ocean episode. Yay! In this episode, we learn of this strange world that isn't the digital world called the Dark Ocean, that Kari is in some way connected to. It's a pretty unnerving episode, especially thanks to these weird, gloopy fellows that try to take Kari as their queen in the end. At the end of this episode, this giant octopus-looking Cthulhu guy rises from the ocean and swears vengeance on Kari for some mysterious and unknown reason. keep this episode in the back of your mind, folks. Up next is episode 22, which is in my opinion the worst episode of the series in the English dub. So, this is supposed to be the start of a minor character arc for Davis. The plot is simple. Davis is jealous of TK and Kari's relationship, as usual, and thinks that the way to get to her is to make Veemon Digivolve. Not Armor Digivolve, but regular Digivolve.
I got it! Just Digivolve into a champion Digimon who happens to be a great dancer!
In order to try and force Veemon to Digivolve, he not only tricks him, but puts them in very dangerous situations.
Veemon, help me!
David, hold on!
Until unintentionally angering a guy called Tortamon and being chased down. Finally, Veemon Digivolves, they fight, and all is well. Now here's the problem. In the Japanese version, the reason Tortamon chases down Davis and Veemon is because a rock hit him while he was pissing. This is technically Davis' fault, and it pissed him off, so he started chasing them. But eventually, after Davis gets back to a cliff, he falls to his knees and starts to beg for forgiveness. Then the reason why Tortamon stops is because after their fight, Tortamon has a second to chill out, realizes he really needs to relieve himself, so he does, washes his hands, and then just walks off. Now in the Japanese version this works, because Veemon Digivolving is meant to symbolize Davis learning a lesson. He learns humility and not to be a fucking asshole. And so he is rewarded. This carries on a tradition that the original series had of the same thing happening. Character arc is complete, Digilution happens. Now, obviously, the English dub couldn't just have a turtle pissing on a children's show, so they had to cut that out. But the problem is that all the time spent with the pissing, plus a poop joke from earlier in this episode, well, they're already cutting out a lot, so to make the proper time for the show, they had to keep in basically everything else, including Tortamon washing his hands. So in order to explain why Tortamon just randomly washes his hands, they changed Davis's apology to him asking if he'll wash his hands before killing them. Yes. Really.
I've always considered myself a very clean person.
Oh, really? It's a good thing he's never seen your robe.
Before you destroy us, could you do me a big favor?
What?
Would you mind washing your hands?
Huh?
This changes the entire episode, because now Davis learns nothing. He's an asshole to Veemon the entire episode, and gets rewarded in the end with exactly what he wanted. This also massively fucks up Davis's continuing arc over the next few episodes. Now don't get me wrong, the arc still feels rough in the Japanese dub too, since Davis is a little shit there as well, but at least there he's less of an asshole throughout the series, so his transformation is a bit less bitter to swallow. And in a complete 180, let's talk about probably the best episode in the series, which is the one right after it. This whole episode follows Ken and his internal monologue as he tries to come to terms with his past, the death of his brother, how he and his family reacted to it, and how it turned him into the person he is today. It's a really good episode, and actually makes Ken a really sympathetic character. As a kid, he was jealous of Sam, as he was really smart and got all his parents' attention.
Your little Sam is the smartest boy in school. Can I get my picture taken with him? I have 3 daughters I'd like him to meet.
He wished his brother would disappear, and when that happened, he felt obviously guilty. So he decided to follow in Sam's footsteps and become what he was. His parents, so blinded by grief over the death of their young son, ignored the fact that Ken was changing just because they wanted their son back so badly.
You're right. It's my fault. I shouldn't have pushed him so hard. I loved the attention so much that I didn't realize what my son really needed the most. The chance to be a normal kid once in a while.
I hate to say it, but we failed as parents.
The repression of who Ken is, complemented by the fact that no one really seemed to care that he was changing, led Ken into a serious depression, to which the Digimon Emperor was a venting tool. However, both Ken and his parents come to realize that what they did wasn't healthy, and his parents finally embrace him for who he is, and in return, Ken is able to face his demons, reunite with a recently reincarnated Wormmon, and begin the road to accepting his past and making right by all the terrible things he did. Honestly, the thing that surprised me most about the episode is how little of it was changed in the localization, which I think we should talk about for a second. In the original video, I made a point that the dub would occasionally feel like an abridged series, which is a series that takes a normally serious show like Dragon Ball or Yu-Gi-Oh!, cuts out all of the fluff, and makes the otherwise serious show into a comedic farce.
Hey everybody, look at me! I'm Seto Kaiba. I have a dragon fetish and I sound like Brock from Pokemon.
Well, I have to apologize to Adventure, because Adventure 02 showed me just how much worse it could be. This show will just randomly throw a stupid joke in the middle of a scene that wasn't supposed to have one. It felt like a goddamn episode of Ghost Stories. Yes, that reference earlier on did come back.
Ken's talents include being able to play one game of chess while everyone watches.
You really look terrible, Gomamon. But I mean that in a nice way.
Boy, that jerk really left the digital world in a big mess, didn't he?
Hey, listen, it's not my fault. I'm doing the best I can.
I was talking about Ken, not you, Davis.
Oh, never mind.
Oh, I bought a new label maker today. I just can't stop playing with it. I even labeled the toilet.
They just don't fucking let up. Every fucking episode has a handful of stupid, unfunny jokes thrown in there that do nothing but deflate the tension.
This is why I don't surf the internet. I hate websites.
Hell, sometimes they're not even jokes. They just fucking say weird shit. Take this fucking scene that was a pain to sit through, where Ken and Izzy just kind of talk about books for no reason.
You should read Singvold's Theory of Ultimate Brain Power. You might be able to pick up a few pointers.
Actually, I taught a class on it. But don't you think Tesara's strengthening your mind was more effective?
Yeah. But of course, Gorski's My Brain, My Buddy is the quintessential masterpiece when it comes to exploring the inner workings of the human mind. Now, I'm sure you've read it a dozen times. It's a bestseller in the school psychology department bookstore.
I'm sorry, Izzy. I can't believe I've never heard of...
Shut the fuck up! This isn't funny, this isn't interesting, this is boring. In the Japanese dub, this scene is important because, shocker, it moves the plot along. But here, they just randomly do shit like this. I don't get it. I feel like the reason why this happens is because the serious stuff in the show also gets turned up a notch. Ken's whole mental breakdown is just one example, but there is some fucked up stuff that happens in this show, and some genuinely surprising moments. I'll make note of them when they happen, but I feel like the show thought that they need to counterbalance things. We'll let you keep the part where they discuss killing people intact, but that's gonna require an additional joke per episode. Oh yeah, we should probably get back to the plot now. So after defeating the Digimon Emperor, there's this new bad guy going around called Arukenimon, who looks like an average human mother. She's using the control spires that still remain, which she has some strange connection to start causing havoc, turning them into Digimon and having them do dastardly deeds. Ken makes his return during one of these and has Wormmon, or I guess his Digilution Stingmon, kill one of them. This starts a debate in the team, both as to whether or not Ken should be allowed to join the team, and whether or not it's okay to kill evil Digimon. And for the first time in the show, all 5 main characters have distinct traits. I can actually hear what they're saying and think, that's what Cody would say, or that's what Yoli would say. You see, this is one of the few times the show actually does something interesting. In the original show, everyone started out as complete strangers to one another. They were only allies through convenience, and that made things interesting when there would be inevitable clashes. However, once everyone was past all that, there's very little in terms of discussion or disagreement in the group. From the end of Devimon up to midway through the final arc, basically everyone is always on the same page. Here though, well, they're missing the initial stranger phase. Everyone's just kind of instantly best friends on the outset of the series. Yeah, I said in the original video that the first few episodes feel aimless. Looking back, those were important for characterization. This show doesn't have anything like that, so it feels forced when everyone just accepts that they're best friends now. However, almost to make up for that, this show actually has them have different viewpoints post-becoming friends, which is actually an interesting idea, especially given how differently these characters all view the situation. Davis is 100% on board with bringing Ken to the team, and he's very outspoken about it. TK also thinks they should invite him, but since he realizes no one else would agree, he keeps his mouth shut. Cody is 100% against the idea, believing that he did too many terrible things to deserve a chance. Yoli is unsure, but hesitant given how he did have Stingmon kill that Digimon, and Kari is fine with it either way. This ties in well with their crests too. Davis has the crests of courage and friendship. He's open to accepting Ken for his faults and has the courage to speak out about when TK can't. Yoli has the crest of love and sincerity, so it makes sense that she would be apprehensive to accepting someone who abused Digimon, but also open to the idea of them reforming. And Cody is the crest of knowledge and reliability. It logically would be unwise to accept someone to the team who did such terrible things, even if he does supposedly have the crest of kindness. I also like the fact that the 3 new members of the team are naturally against the idea of killing Digimon, whereas TK and Kari are just kind of whatever about it, seeing how they've had to do it before. It's a rare moment where we actually get to see an outsider's view of the situation, and honestly helps us realize just how fucked up their situation was in the original show. A new perspective is always fun. Yoli even has a bit of an arc where she realizes that Ken only killed the Digimon that was created by a control spire. Then she becomes more trusting of him, and by the end of the episode, she even openly wishes he'll join the team.
I can't wait for the day when you decide to join us, Ken. Yoli.
The show is finally doing something interesting and unique, and then they fuck it up. Because we can't have nice things, the literal very next episode, suddenly everyone on the team thinks Davis is crazy for thinking that they should have Ken join.
Hey! Speaking of mistakes, we should ask Ken now.
Are you out of your mind?
My dudes, I was praising you. You were doing a good job, and then you ruined it by forgetting whose character was who. Now yeah, in all fairness, Ken did say he wanted some time to figure himself out before he joined the team at the end of the last episode. That doesn't warrant this heavy of a disagreement from everyone.
Are you out of your mind?
Suddenly everyone just acts like Davis is a doofus for even suggesting bringing Ken on board. Why has this happened? Because it suits the plot. Ken's old base that he destroyed is undergoing effectively a nuclear meltdown, and only Ken knows how to stop it. If they don't, then darkness will explode out, or some shit. But only Davis wants him to show up because no one else trusts him.
We need Ken's help, and we need it now!
But Davis, shouldn't we talk about this?
We just did!
The show is trying to make us side with Davis, but in order to do that, since Davis sucks so much, they have to make everyone else an inconsistent jackass.
Don't worry, I think he'll come around. I don't blame him for being cautious. We were wrong not to give him a second chance. Besides, we can always use another Digidestined.
The next day.
So where's Ken, huh?
I'm sure he's on his way!
This episode also introduces a new type of Digilution, called DNA Digivolving, where two Digimon fuse together. In order to do this, the two humans have to be in sync with each other, which basically just means being good friends. Wormmon and Vmon fuse together to make Paildramon. And now, boys and girls, we reached the part of the show where things just start falling apart. It was starting to salvage itself a bit there, but the train's brake just snapped off and now everyone is panicking. So in order to keep the original Digidestined from swooping in and saving the day, now that the control spires are largely out of the picture, the Rares had to come up with some way to somehow permanently remove their ability to Digivolve past a certain point. So we get a massive exposition dump, which basically tells us that in order to create a barrier of light to keep evil out of the digital world, the 8 original Digidestined gave up their crests.
Because we had to give up the power of our crest, our Digimon lost their ability to Digivolve to their ultimate forms.
So, to quickly explain what the hell that means, with the Digivices alone, the Digimon can Digivolve up from their base forms, like Agumon here, to the next level up, Greymon in this case. Then with the crests, they can go up another level, so from Greymon to Metal Greymon. Without their crests, they can't go up to or beyond that level. That's just how it is. Keep this in mind. So back to the story at large, the team, now joined by Ken, managed to track down Arukenimon in this giant house. We actually spend a few episodes here, and for the sake of giving genuine props, I like the build up to revealing what Arukenimon actually is. The giant house and fact that all of the Digimon in the house are bugs is great foreshadowing for when they reveal that Arukenimon is actually a spider lady. The team has her on the ropes and are discussing if they should kill her or find some way to arrest her, when suddenly this guy Mummymon shows up to save her, and hey, remember a couple episodes ago when Kari was randomly teleported to another dimension she had some strange connection to, and we learned about this octopus guy that had a mysterious vendetta against her? So anyways, yeah, Mummymon is here now. This show really likes to just randomly have new bad guys show up and say, "Surprise, I've been here the whole time!"
Wait, really? Where have you been all this time?
Oh no, figure it out yourself. Bye! So now, really pissed off at these kids, Arukenimon decides the best course of action would be to create a Digimon out of 100 control spires, realizing that more spires means more power. She does this, and voila! We get Black War Greymon. Now, Black War Greymon, or BG as I'll call him for short, is a very interesting character. I like his arc, because it does what Digimon Adventure did really well, presenting these serious and deep ideas in simple ways that kids can understand. BG has a heart, or soul, or what have you, but he doesn't really have a purpose in life. He is nothing more than a tool used for fighting. However, over the course of his arc, he comes to realize that life's meaning isn't what's given to you, it's what you make of it. Or in words the show itself uses, the circumstances of one's birth doesn't matter.
You see, every life has a purpose, a reason. The circumstances surrounding its birth don't matter.
So, You finally caved in and ripped off Pokemon.
I see now that the circumstances of one's birth are irrelevant.
I will die on the hill that Digimon is not a Pokemon ripoff. Calling Digimon a Pokemon ripoff is like calling Yakuza a Shenmue ripoff, or God of War a Devil May Cry ripoff. One was certainly inspired by the other, but they went in different directions and are distinct. That being said, Black War Greymon is a direct ripoff of Mewtwo from Pokemon the first movie. Both Mewtwo and BG were clones created through artificial means. Both were only given fighting as a purpose in life, both were too strong for any opponent and as such broke free from their captors, and both eventually came to the realization that the meaning in life is what we choose it to be. Now yes, BG's plan is different as he's trying to destroy these Destiny Stones in order to fight this dragon guy here, but at the end of the day, their backstory and arcs are so goddamn similar, I can't even act like this guy isn't a ripoff, especially since this aired 2 years after the movie came out. Hell, both even end up befriending what they were clones of, as BG has a nice little chat with Agumon. And it's really a shame because when they first started out, I really liked BG's arc and I was interested to see where he was going. But then we got here and I just kinda got sad because I realized what happened. Oh yeah, and I should mention real quick that we got 2 more DNA Digilutions, as Hawkmon and Gatomon fused to make Sylphimon, and Patamon and Armadillomon fused to make Shakuomon. And now folks is the part of the show where we go off the fucking rails. Yep, I said earlier the show was falling apart, but it wasn't impossible for it to fix itself. Now, well, we're at the point of no return, folks. We're 37 episodes in here, it's not getting any better. And this is mainly because the show's lore gets too fucking complicated. I know I'm talking about Digimon lore right now, but hear me out. Adventure was smart. It realized that the lore didn't really matter, and that's not what people were here for. So it didn't give it too much focus. The show's draw was the characters. However, they also knew the lore still had to be consistent, so they kept their explanations brief. You don't need to explain everything, just enough so that we know what's going on. Because, obviously, a literal 7-minute long exposition dump is boring. Oh yeah, this show does that. A few times, actually.
You didn't have to cut me off. Think I like it never happened to know we were nothing. I don't even need your love, but you treat me like a stranger and I feel so rough. No, you didn't have to stoop so low. Have your friends collect your records and then change your number. I said I don't need that though. Now you're just somebody that I used to know. Now you're just somebody.
See, we're close to wrapping up the series now, so the show feels like it needs to basically explain itself as far as the mysteries of the world go. But clearly, they were going for the mystery box approach. Focus on the questions, deal with the answers later. This is a horrible writing tip, by the way. Don't listen to that guy. He's a bitch. I shouldn't call fucking Giant Slither. That's punching up. It's fine, whatever. I guess the best way I can explain it is through comparison. Digimon Adventure. How do you Digivolve? Be good friends with your Digimon, and have the Digivice. Wanna go further? Get a necklace. Boom. Snappy. Everyone's happy and we can move on. Adventure 2. Where did these eggs come from? Well, long ago, in ancient times, there were 4 Digimon which protected the digital world, in a very similar way to the folktales of how 4 monsters protect Kyoto, which we got a whole ass lecture on a few episodes ago. After the bad guys of the original series were defeated, these 4 decided that would be a good idea to create a barrier of peace around the digital world, hence why the original 8 gave up their crests. But this ended up not really working, as Ken showed up and started trashing shit, so they needed new Digidestined. They picked out 3 kids who saw a Digimon fight happen that was in one of the movies that got streamed to all of their computers, whatever, doesn't matter, and 2 more from the original series because fuck it. The 8 eggs were then created, and despite the fact that they made 8 and only picked 5 kids, they were shocked when the kids were able to carry multiple eggs.
Something happened that was not anticipated. It seems you had a device that was capable of storing several digi-eggs at once, sort of like a digital egg carton. I believe you call it a D-terminal.
Now picture that, but with dumb jokes, stretched over multiple minutes, and happening multiple times in the series. And you see why this show gets complicated. I'm an adult, and I was paying attention and taking notes, and even I got confused at some points. The Dragon Guy also alludes to there being a threat that's hunting them down, and hey, remember quite a few episodes ago when Kari randomly got teleported to another dimension that she had some strange connection to, and we learned about this big octopus guy that had a mysterious vendetta against her? Well anyways, we get introduced to the series' next villain, this guy called Oikawa. That's right, another human villain. Oh, and by the way, Cody's dad is dead. I know I just kind of threw that out there, but we only really learned about it from one line at the start of the show, and it was never really relevant until now, as Oikawa has a connection to him. By this point in the series, the show is no longer confident in its own ideas, and has started lifting them from elsewhere. First Pokemon, and now the original series, as the Digimon are invading the real world! Again! Except this time it's worse! See, when my oldest mon invaded, he actually, had a plan. He wasn't just invading for the sake of it. He and his army lied in wait and had his spies look for Kari because she was the key to his defeat. Once she was found, the full-scale invasion started to find her. And when shit went south, he basically kept all of Japan hostage until she gave herself up. But here, they're just mindlessly fucking things up. There's no real goal. The villain's plan has nothing to do with Digimon invading the real world. The show also just starts really sucking the original's dick at this point. The original crew shows back up and become main characters again, in a rather jarring way, mind you. And we get a ton of random scenes with them that don't go anywhere. Like, take this scene, for example. Matt is having a concert with his band. Tai is on the way there and he runs into Sora, who's bringing him some cookies. He asks, "Hey, you want to go to a concert together?" And Sora says, "I'm sorry, but I'm into Matt, not you." Tai is obviously a little hurt by this, but is respectful about it, and Sora promises to save a cookie for him. In a vacuum, this is a nice scene. It's nice to see these two interacting in a way we haven't seen before, since obviously romance was never a feature in the original show. It's also nice to see Sora showing both romantic and platonic love. She did have the crest of love after all, and it gives more depth to them and their friendship. But why the fuck are we watching it? It's not like this related to anything plot or character-wise. It's not like this leads to Tai talking to Davis about getting when a girl doesn't like you. It's just here. And then we move on. These aren't the main characters anymore. Hell, by this point in the series, they were barely side characters. And this just kinda happens randomly, where we'll just get a scene with one of the characters from the old show. Like, yeah, it's cute, but why aren't we focusing on the show's actual main characters? Well, it's because the show realized that they kind of squandered their opportunity to make them stand tall on their own, and now is desperate to try and get us to remember when the show used to be good. So anyways, as I said earlier, Digimon are invading the real world, and this guy, Genai, comes out and starts telling the kids they gotta stop him. Genai was in the original series, by the way, and no, they don't explain how I went from an old man to a young guy. Fuck you. Pyodramon, who as you may recall is a fusion of Wormmon and Veemon, then digivolves into Imperial Dramon. Is it getting confusing yet? Basically, the next few episodes is comprised of the whole team riding on Imperial Dramon's back across the world as they discover, well, remember a while back when I mentioned that in one movie a bunch of kids caught sight of a Digimon fight that was effectively live streamed to their computer? If you don't, that's fine, it was relatively offhand, but here's where that shit becomes important, because now there are hundreds, if not thousands of Digidestined all over the world, and we get to meet them here. Also, Metal Greymon, Zudamon, Lilymon, what are you doing here? I thought that the Digidestined gave up their crests and couldn't digivolve that high up. Yeah, they never actually explained why they can do this now. They just kind of hoped you forgot about the fact that this is supposed to be, impossible. But there's more problems with the next few episodes than just that. Trust me. I think my notes describe the problems with this arc the best. Not only does nothing fucking happen over the course of the next few episodes, outside of a couple of scenes of Mamimon and Arukenimon preying on some sad, lonely children, but, well, I just don't like the idea of them making thousands of kids the Digidestined. See, what made Digimon unique from Pokemon, among many things, is that the digital world with all of the monsters and whatnot is separate from the real world. Outside of the Digidestined, Genai is the only other human we see there. It goes to make the digital world feel alien and strange, which in my opinion is more interesting. We discover more about this world as the characters do, and by the end of the series, we just kind of get how the digital world operates. When you start to have more and more of the digital world stuff influence the real world, that separation becomes less and less, and before long, what's really separating the way this world operates from Pokemon, or the dozens of Pokemon ripoffs? Like it or not, that separation is what makes Digimon stand out. The show also adds a logical reason as to why both worlds have to remain split. That being that humans are terrible, and giving them access to Digimon would probably end up being a disaster. Which, yeah, that's pretty fair. This is further hammered home by Oikawa and what he's up to. Basically, he just wants to go to a digital world, as he learned about as a kid but was never able to actually get there. Arukenimon and Mamimon are actually his creations. He made them to help him. His plan is to use these things called dark spores to harness energy to open a portal directly to a digital world. The control towers were meant to weaken the barrier between the worlds. The fact that we've had 2 villains now that were humans that were simply corrupted by the allure of going to the digital world, to me, says that the show is trying to make a point that, while the digital world can be used for good, it can also be used for evil, and it may not be worth the risk. But wait, strongman, you scream at your screen. Just what are the dark spores? Well, they're another thing of Oikawa's creation, as they're these little seeds which fester inside people, turning them to assholes.
How am I supposed to achieve perfection if inferior people keep trying to butt in?
And eventually releases that dark energy that they've been building up into these little flowers. And the person he initially tested the dark spores on was Ken.
Ever since I first saw you, I knew you had something special. A dark spirit deep inside. If I planted the dark spore, I knew that it would be able to grow.
Oh, fuck. A lot of people have a problem with this, as they see it as coping out of what made Ken interesting. He's no longer a kid that just went down a dark path because of the circumstances he couldn't control. Now he was being forced to be evil. Now, to be fair to this series, I like the concept of the dark spores, as it carries on tradition from the original series that the hardships of the digital world were meant to mirror the hardships of the real world. But the difference is that the digital stuff and the real stuff never were, like, literally linked. It wasn't the Digimon's fault that Matt and TK's parents got divorced. It wasn't the Digimon that convinced Tai to be selfish and almost get his sister killed. That was just real life being real. The digital world merely gave analogs to those events, which forced these characters to face it head on and grow. I feel like I've said stuff like that like 3 times in this video now, but I have to keep bringing it up to show you how important that kind of stuff was to the original show, and how O2 just straight up ignores it. And when they do try to emulate it, they fail horribly. I feel like if the dark spores were manifested by Ken being in the digital world for so long with all that darkness inside of him, it wouldn't have been as bad. It's still Ken's fault that he is the way he is, but it keeps the plot point relatively untouched. Oh, speaking of plot, turns out Oikawa isn't the only one trying to get the dark spores, as Daemon, Lady Devimon, Mr. Bones, and the giant squid Digimon are also chasing after them. Why do they want them? I don't know, they never say. Imperial Dramon also gets a new form, as he now can change into Fighter Mode. Not Digivolve, they just call it Mode Change. Great, this isn't complicated enough already. So anyways, this part of the show actually surprised me. See, the debate about whether or not it's acceptable to kill Digimon who are evil comes back. And not only is the answer yes, but they also actually use the word kill.
I have a bad feeling about this.
Why? What do you mean?
I don't want to kill another Digimon.
All I know is that Davis and Ken are in danger right now. Come on, you don't want either of them to get hurt, do you, Cody?
No, I guess you're right. I just don't want to see any more Digimon get killed, you know what I mean?
And to explain why that surprised me, let's talk about dubbing really quick. When bringing a show over from one country to another, especially 2 countries as different as Japan and America, you can't just translate the dialogue as is and hand it over to us. Not only because that would sound clunky, but also because there's just a lot of things that one culture sees as normal that would confuse the other. Don't believe me? Okay. What's Golden Week? I didn't fucking know until I watched the Japanese version of the show, where they just sort of mention it in passing in one episode. Also, as illustrated previously, Japan is a lot more lax in what they show on kids' shows. Peeing and shit are perfectly fine, and the Japanese version, these kids swear on the regular. It was actually kind of funny to hear for the first time. Obviously, over here, we had to cut that out. The English version also cut out a lot of violence, like fight scenes and the Digimon Emperor abusing Wormmon. Whenever they kept these parts in, they would usually dub them over with cartoony sound effects to make it less impactful.
Oh, I'm sorry. How's this?
This is why them using the word kill shocked me. While they say it a lot in the Japanese dub, the English dub almost exclusively uses substitutes, usually destroy or something along those lines.
Oh no! You vaporized her! She's finished!
But here, they just let a few uses of the word slip through the cracks, and that impresses me. Hey! Do you remember 32 fucking episodes ago when Kari was randomly teleported to another dimension she had some strange connection to, and we learned about this octopus guy that had a mysterious vendetta against her? Well, they decided to finally pay that off as, unlike the rest of Daemon's army, Daemon himself cannot be defeated, and so she uses her connection to the Dark Ocean to open a portal and seal him away forever. Psych! What, you think they're actually gonna give Kari something to do in this series? Nah, bitches, it's Ken who opens a portal to the Dark Ocean. Now yes, to be fair, there was an episode where Ken too talks about how he's seen the Dark Ocean, and I did purposefully avoid talking about it to make this little rule of thirds progress better, but it doesn't fucking matter because I'm trying to make a point here. Remember way back when I said that it feels like Kari has the setup for character arcs that other people pay off? This is where that shit starts happening. I don't care if technically speaking it makes sense that Ken can open a portal to the Dark Ocean, as it robs Kari of a moment that she's been building to for almost the entire series at this point. She is the crest of light. It makes sense that her arc would be her gaining power over the Dark Ocean. Get it? The only other time in the show that she has anything of note is something that she steals right from Yoli. As we discussed previously, Yoli is very apprehensive to the idea of killing Digimon, whereas TK and Kari are used to it. Except, randomly, back when BG was roaming around at the speed of Mewtwo, Kari expressed a lot of empathy for him.
Where do you think he's going? I kind of feel sorry for him. He must be very confused and lonely. She created him to be a fighting machine.
This came right the fuck out of nowhere, when, again, this would make much more sense for Yoli. Then, when we get to the part where Sylphimon is forced to kill Lady Devimon, Yoli is very shaken by this, because it's been established that she cares deeply for living things, even if they're evil. But Kari, despite spending an extended period of time sympathizing for someone who, admittedly, isn't evil, but they didn't fucking know that, she's just fine with it. Because of course she would be. She's done it before. See what I mean? They robbed Yoli of the build-up that she'd need to make this moment actually hit home, and the build-up that Kari's arc had actually been going through is randomly taken away from her and given to Ken, who has already had his arc by this point. This leaves Kari with literally nothing. Why is she here? What does she provide other than just allowing Gatomon to be here? They just didn't know what to do with her, I guess. Yeah, I can just tell you now, we never actually end up seeing the octopus guy. You might as well forget that ever happened. Along with all the other things they make you forget with this show, like Magnamon and the team giving up their crests. We're nearing the end here, so let's wrap this up. BG gives his life meaning by sacrificing himself to seal off a gate to the digital world that Oikawa was going to use. He doesn't realize this and tries to use it anyways after explaining a few things.
Your spore was the original, so it was able to live inside you without destroying you. But the dark spores in these children are only copies of yours, so they're imperfect, and it seems...
When they cross over, they find that they aren't actually in the digital world, and at last they discover who was really behind this all along. Now, I don't want to overhype this, but I'm gonna be straight with you. When what I'm about to show you happened the first time I watched this, I paused the show and just stood there slack-jawed for a minute. The shit they pull here is so fucking absurd that I can't even explain it. So these lips show up and start talking about how they were the big bad controlling Oikawa this entire time, and when the mystery is finally solved...
That voice! What? I still hear that voice in my nightmares! My
Iotismon? But how can that be?
My Otismon? Yes!
I'm not surprised that you saw through me, my old pet.
Yes, the big bad guy of the whole fucking series was Myotismon from the first series. What? Do I need to explain this? You don't just pull a long presumed dead guy out of your ass and say, surprise, he was the bad guy all along. In the last fucking episodes of the series, there were no clues to this. There was no mystery to discover. The most we got is in the previous episode when this random face shows up over Oikawa. But that's not what Myotismon looks like, or Venom Myotismon. This is his newest form, Malo Myotismon. So how are we supposed to guess that? I really hope I don't need to explain this to you how, kids show or not, you don't pull this shit on us. Before this moment in the show, the last time that Myotismon was even directly mentioned was literally years before this episode aired. The last time Myotismon was mentioned in the series was an episode that aired in December 5th, 1999 in Japan, and February 20th, 2000 in America. This episode aired March 11th, 2001 in Japan, and May 12th, 2001 in America. Literally over a year's worth of time had passed in real life between when this guy was last relevant and when he finally shows back up. This is pathetic. I have no other words for it. The show pisses me off even more as Malo Myotismon uses this illusion attack on everyone to show them their greatest fantasies. Yoli reveals for the first time that she apparently was insecure and jealous of her siblings because they got all her parents' attention.
You're always surrounded by your brothers and sisters, and you feel like you get passed over, so you've wondered what it would be like if they weren't around. Am I right?
You're right.
Do I need to mention that how this is a flat-out lie? TK sees his family reunited, Cody is showing his dead dad around the digital world, Ken has Sam back, and Kari lives in a world where people and Digimon live in peace. Again, something more suited for Yoli. And Davis gets nothing. Yep, according to the show itself, Davis has no desires or flaws.
How can it be that you have no insecurities or unhappiness for it to feed off of?
What do I have to worry about? I've got my friends, my family, the Digimon. Besides some guy with a letter opener on his face trying to kill me, I'm happy to say I don't have any problems.
Impossible. There's not a single child in the world that doesn't have something they're worried about.
Davis is now the perfect child. Davis was such an unlikable brat at the first part of the series that they have overcorrected and have now made him perfect. Good job. Malo Myotismon is then defeated in the lamest way possible, as all of the children with dark spores inside them learn that it doesn't matter if they're digi-destined or not. They can have an impact on the world too, so long as they follow their dreams.
It doesn't matter if you don't have partner Digimon. It doesn't matter if you're not digi-destined. You don't need any of that stuff to have a really good life.
I always wanted to be a kindergarten teacher. Me too.
They then get Digimon, which kind of undercuts the message, but yeah, Malo Myotismon is defeated because all of the children believe in themselves. Fuck you. In an action TV series, the bad guy is defeated by believing in yourself. At least Apocalypse got a cool final battle. Oikawa then finally gets to see the digital world, but is horrified to realize that he had a hand in its near destruction. So, using the power of fairy dust or some shit, he turns himself into butterflies and starts fixing the digital world. We then flash forward another 10 years or so, learn that everyone has a Digimon now.
Now everyone on the planet knows about the digital world and has their own partner Digimon.
And learn where everyone went when they became adults. Tai and Agumon are diplomats for the digital world and real world. Fair enough, Tai being the main character of the series, sure, his job should involve the digital world in some way. Matt is an astronaut. What? I mean, with the message of the end of the show being follow your dreams and Matt always being related to music in some way or another, shouldn't he be a musician? Okay, here's one that makes sense. Mimi is a fashion designer and Sora is a chef. Oh wait, no, I got that wrong. Sora is a fashion designer and Mimi is a chef. Why? Mimi literally moved to America to pursue an amateur fashion career. Joe becomes a doctor, Izzy becomes a scientist, TK is a writer, Yoli and Ken are married, that wasn't really set up. Ken's a detective,
Cody's a defense attorney,
Kari is a teacher, and Davis gets a stupid fucking noodle cart. And that is Digimon Adventure 02. Jesus Christ, what a disaster. I honestly can keep talking about this series. I can talk about how they overused the transformation sequences. Seriously, I'm pretty sure that the average is like 6 per episode. I can talk about how annoying all the new music is. I can talk about how surprisingly cheap the animation looks sometimes. But with a show like this, you really can't talk about everything that makes the series so bad. Despite the show's many flaws though, the series was a great success. Commercially, I mean. And well, despite the many flaws I pointed out, the show definitely has some genuine fans. Before I started my rewatch, I reached out to the Digimon community and simply asked them what they thought of Digimon Adventure 02. To my surprise, most of the responses were positive. A lot of people were saying that they loved the show and characters and whatnot. Now, maybe I missed something or I just didn't get it, but English or Japanese, the show is deeply flawed in my opinion. But I would be wrong not to act as though there weren't people out there that genuinely enjoyed the show. I'm glad they have something they can enjoy. I can also kind of see it. The show has a lot of really good ideas, but they're very few and far between. I feel like if the show got a reboot in the same way that Adventure did in 2020, it could really fix it and make it a proper, really good show. Just follow through on the good things that the show had going for it, fix the characters to make them more distinct, pay attention to the plot and make sure there aren't any major loopholes, and just work on the great things that the show does do. Because again, it has some rare, but really good moments. But a couple of good moments in a 50-episode series just can't salvage it from being a complete disaster. And that's it. I finally fucking did it. After a year of prepping, I finally did the Digimon Adventure 02 video. I hope it wasn't disappointing. So what happens now? Well, as I said, Adventure 02 was very successful, so almost immediately after it ended, we got Digimon Tamers. I actually haven't watched it, but I heard good things about it. Who knows, maybe this time next year I'll be talking about that show as well. But for now, I'm gonna relax the only way I can now that this is all over. Looking up fan art of Angelomon and Lady Devimon, I'm Sir Strongman, and that was the thing. God damn it, Tosh, how long does it take to make some snacks? Hurry up, we still have like 20 episodes left to go.
Alright, I'm here. I got my Monster Zero. I got the popcorn. You got bootleg Pokemon. I'm ready.
For the last time, Tosh, the show itself isn't bootleg, only the DVD we're watching it on.
Yeah, but you have bootleg Pokemon, the bootleg. So, like, just Yokai Watch.
No, man, this is Digimon.
This is the real one.
Yes.
But this is awful.
Yeah, pretty much.
Can we watch the bootleg? Please.